Hi, thanks for joining me. This is Jim Goldstein. I want to walk through two different applications with you that will allow us to stack images to create a star trails photo. The first application is StarStaX, and the second application is Adobe Photoshop utilizing a script put together by Russell Brown called Stack-A-Matic. Now I've got a set series of images that we will put together. And I already know that the first one is a test shot, so we're not going to use that one. And I load them, and it comes into StarStaX, which is a donation-aware application, I believe, and it supports JPEGs, PNGs, and TIFF files. It doesn't support RAW files, unfortunately. So this series of images was output from Lightroom. I did my file post-processing or image post-processing in Lightroom, and then exported out the entire series to JPEGs, and that's what I've just imported. So now I'm going to start the processing, and I should just double check my settings here. Blending is on Lighten, which means that it will combine all of the highlights into one image. And I don't have a dark image that I need to worry about because that was all handled in camera. And I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit process, and what we'll see is we'll see a live rendering of the star trail photo. Now what you'll also see is all the light trails and satellite tracks and light pollution that's happening in the foreground. So if you're seeing something that's red in the foreground, that's brake lights from cars that were passing by in the area, and white highlights in the foreground are from headlights of cars passing by. This was taken at Olmsted Point in Yosemite National Park, and so what we'll see here is everything put together in a relatively short time frame. And next up we'll try this out in Photoshop. So let's just let this run, and we'll jump back into things when it wraps up. Alright, so 184 images in 123 seconds, so roughly 2 minutes, not too bad. Now, the upside of this clearly is the speed. The downside is that to save this, it's going to save it out as a JPEG. So I've already got a file here. I'll just use that as the test name. Save that out. Yep, we'll replace that. And there we go. Now I've got the image completely saved. It's been completely rendered. Like I said, the downside is that what you get as the output is ultimately the final image. So if you need to remove any kind of light trails or light pollution, you need to do that in the initial post-processing before you import your series of images. Not necessarily ideal, but still manageable. Now let's try it in Adobe Photoshop. Here we have Adobe Bridge, and this is where I've installed a script by Russell Brown called Stack-A-Matic, and it ends up showing up in the Tools menu. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to select in the film strip all of the images, actually not that first one as I mentioned. I'm going to select all these images. You see that they're all selected in the main window, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Brown's Stack-A-Matic, and it will open this up in Photoshop automatically. And the strobing effect is unfortunate for the video, but this is Photoshop taking each individual image, copying it, adding it as a layer to one file. Now this is the difference between the Photoshop script and Stack-A-Matic, is that Photoshop renders the entire sequence in one file as layers. And the benefit with this is that you can mask out any kind of light pollution, light streaks from planes, satellite trails, even foreground light pollution. So this is going to take a little bit longer, so we'll fast forward through this whole process and jump you to the very end. All right, so here we have the final product from Adobe Photoshop's Stack-A-Matic script via Russell Brown. Now, because of the way that the blending is happening here, this is a tweaked version of the script. It comes out a little bit lighter than normal. Now, the thing that is important to note with the Adobe Photoshop script is that because it's Adobe Photoshop, you can actually reference RAW files or DNG files, not just JPEGs. Now I referenced JPEGs in this example just because I had them handy as it was, but you get a lot more flexibility when you have the RAW files or the DNG files to use. Better RAW conversion, you can kind of incorporate some of the post-processing edits that are happening in Lightroom if you're taking it in from there. And you get all the benefits of the post-processing tools at hand that you can sync between all your images. In any event, as far as the outcome goes, with a little bit of some post-processing and in Photoshop editing out, masking out the highlights and the light pollution in the foreground, the end result looks like this, believe it or not. That's how this file ends up. And of course, this is like a cooking show where I throw together all the ingredients, and then while I open the oven, and here it is. Now, if you compare this to how the StarStaX image came out, it's like so. And that's the final product in Photoshop. So you can achieve similar results with StarStaX. It's just a little bit of a different methodology. It is particularly convenient that you can have all these individual layers. And if you remove them, well, you have to remove the right one. Let's see if I can find one with a particular highlight. Let's go to the beginning. Here we go. Now this one takes the edge off of the rock right here. So if I create a mask on this one, and just with the add layer mask function, and then I would just paint in black where I don't want, oh, I've got the white selected, it's got to be on black. There we go. And I would just paint this in, and it instantly removes that particular layer's light pollution. And it's subtle, so let's go to another layer and do the same thing. And again, this one does the same thing. It's the rock, for example. So you do this enough on all the layers, and eventually all of the light pollution is removed. So that's how this is happening. And of course, you can do this also with the the light trails from the planes and the satellite trails as well. Now, one thing that I also wanted to add is that the downside with this, of course, is that because I'm working with the largest resolution possible out of a Canon 5D Mark II, which is about 5,600 pixels wide by 3,700, is that the file size is extremely large if you're doing large number of files or you're combining a large number of files. Now, for this particular image, I don't know if you can see it too well, but this ends up being about 10.8 gigabytes for this particular image. So not worthy of doing for everybody if you don't have a powerful enough machine, but you can also compensate for that by taking less photos or combining less photos. Anyhow, there you have it. That's how I've created this particular star trail photo, and I'm happy to go over or respond to any comments or questions that you have. If you have any, add them to this post, And special thanks to Russell Brown at Adobe, because this script is really, really awesome and I highly recommend it. And special thanks also to the folks at StarStaX, because they created a really awesome, inexpensive application that does a great job.